this party start. There you have it. Okay, here we go. All right, so today the topic is blessings on the Torah. Blessings on the Torah. Now, just to clarify what we're doing here, we are speaking a little bit to some meaningfulness behind why we do what we do. And last time we spoke about blessings in general, really deep stuff. Today we're going to talk about blessings on the Torah. And the background that I want to bring is to consider, before we even get into this, to consider what it is that, you know, if we think about it, there's something plaguing our time. There's like an epidemic. There's an epidemic of our time going on, right? If you don't know, if in case you haven't noticed it, I'll update you. Okay. If you look around, you see that there's people that we have, as a society, as a culture, living in the Western world, we have never had it better. Look at this funky stuff. Look, we're on a phone right now, beaming all over the place. We got electricity, we got running lights, we got running water. Freaking amazing, right? And if you were to take some of the devices we have now, and you were to put it in a time machine, and you were to go back 300-400 years, and you were to show them there what we have now, they'd be like, oh my God, you guys live in a utopia. Everything must be amazing, and therefore everyone must be blissfully happy. And then we get here, and clearly it's not like that, right? People, not only is it not like that, there is an epidemic of sadness, of feelings of depression, of feelings of emptiness. And so the society around has a big fat question to answer, which is, what the heck's going on here, right? What's going on? What's the reason for it? And how do we remedy it, right? How do we remedy it? And so we're going to begin the process of discovering that right now, guys. First source, okay? And we'll see when you get the blessings of Torah soon enough. First source, we're going to see Rabbi Nassan of Breslov, Lakuti Halachos, Birkas Hareach 5. Hey, he says like this, all right? And of course, as always, feel free to chime in at any time. Thoughts, questions, ideas, whatever you'd like. Don't hesitate, all right? Okay. He says, Ha'adam tzarich lotzi kol davar mikoach ha'pol. What a person's all about is that a person needs to bring anything in this world. What a person's all about is bring it from a state of potential to a state of actualization. Ki Hashem yizbarach bara kol abriya shetihiyeh chasera ad sheyishlamot ha'adam. Hashem created the world in a way that everything is going to have lacking, everything is going to have something missing, everything's going to have incompletion until a person goes ahead and completes it and perfects it. Like it says, Asher bara Elokim la'asot. Just like it says, the entire creation story ends with those three words. Hashem created the whole world. Asher bara Elokim la'asot. Hashem created the whole world in a way that it's made there for you to actualize it. That's literally what it means. By the way, we said previously that there are different words for the different words in Hebrew for the word like to create, right? We mentioned bara, we mentioned yotzer, if you remember in the classroom about the bath of blessing. One word we did not mention was oseh. Oseh is another one. Oseh means actualize, okay? Just to clarify that. So anytime you see that in the Torah, you should know that that's also what it's saying. It's saying to act, the actualization of a process. So that's how Hashem ends off the creation story, is that the entire world, there it is, all for the purpose that you go ahead and then actualize it. You go ahead and actualize it. That a person will go ahead and complete it. That everything needs a fixing, rectification, and finishing off by way of the person. Right? Because the process of making bread is that this world has in it a bunch of stuff, but you need to go ahead and do something to it. You need to go crack the shell of something. You need to grind it. You need to whatever it is in order to bring out the thing. And so this idea that there's things are here, the raw materials here in this world, but you got to go ahead and do something with it. And so the point is that a person is not just physical stuff that is talking about like this. It's also the concept of spiritually as well. Because it's true that yes, Hashem created everything that we have in this world in 6 days of creation. And he brought it from a state of potential to a state of actualization. God did, Hashem did. Nevertheless, there's still an aspect of actualization that really is needed by the way of the person. The actual finishing of the process of anything, still remains in the state of potential until the person himself goes ahead and brings it from that state of potential to a state of actualization. So he gives an example. Just like a seed, right? Just like a seed that's it's there and it's complete as a seed. But if you want to get to the next level, something needs to happen in order to bring that forth and bring out the next level of existence, which is, of course, like a plant, right? But the person, so a person needs to go ahead and do a whole bunch of stuff in order to go ahead and bring that seed into something that's actually going to be usable by the person, right? A plant, a vegetable. He needs to do plowing, he needs to do the seeding, he needs to do a bunch of other things even after harvest, right? Right here, he says, then to go ahead and harvest the grains. And you see a bunch of dots, I put that in. I cut out a bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of different processes that need to be done in order to get it. Until you get it to become a loaf of bread. So just like we have that physically, you see that there's a whole process in order to get the raw material into something that's actually usable and edible and actualized. Just like you have that physically, the truth is the same. That is how spirituality works as well. Matter of fact, we always like to say that Kabbalah is the concept of Kabbalah is related to the Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel, right? Because everything one of the main principles in Kabbalah is that everything here in this physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality. And so, yeah, the physical works like this. So a little hint there. This is how spiritual works as well. That's what we're doing spiritually as well, right? So, same thing spiritually. There's no completion or perfection to anything. So a person needs to go ahead and do the spiritual work that needs to be done. A person needs to go ahead and pray for something, right? Like famously in the story of Adam in the Garden of Eden, that Hashem made stuff, made plants or whatever it is, and seeds, whatever, and it was right there, ready to come out of the ground. It was waiting for Hashem, for the human being to go ahead and pray for it in order that it to come out. So that's the idea. So that they're waiting for the person to go ahead and pray for it to come to whatever it is to come about, and then also that the person should go ahead and use the thing after it comes about, use it for the service of Hashem. And so this, then okay, the thing has been perfected and elevated. So this is the idea that a person needs. So why am I bringing this here? Because like what we just said, I'd like to put forth that one of the things that is lacking for people is that back then you'd go out. Back then you didn't have everything made for you, right? Back then the shelves weren't just full of like ready-made. So no, you actually had to go out and do something. You had to actually engage in a process of putting forth energy and effort. And then you would go ahead, harvest some food, for example, right? Now, vast majority of people in the Western world, are they involved with farming? No. Major shift in the economy, but that also means major shift in culture, major shift in life, major shift in emotions, major shift in psychology. All that stuff is shifted. Okay, so before I was going ahead and putting in effort and I had a reason for it. I wanted to sustain myself. That's what I need to be busy with. And so I understood that that's what I need to be busy with. Okay, where is that effort going now? All that energy and effort and feeling like, okay, I'm putting in an effort. I'm reaping the rewards of my effort, and I'm going ahead and using it for a purpose. And I eat and I sustain myself. And then also, hopefully, if you're Jewish also, right, you're going to hopefully also do some good spiritual stuff too, which is what Hashem wants. Okay, right now, though, most people aren't doing that. Right now, the vast majority of us, anybody here farming on day-to-day basis, that's 0%. So what that means is then, okay, hold on a second. We are all about potential and then actualizing potential. Here we are, sitting on our hands, doing nothing, waiting for the next video, going like this to the phone, right? Waiting to be given an upper by something from the outside. Total shift. right? And so this is the idea. We have to understand that what we're hearing, what we're about to look at, or see a little bit more, is that we very much need this process of this, the concept of the seed, right? That the seed process is the process of going for of moving forward, right? We're going to talk about this. God willing, one of these sources we'll go in more into, probably by the Talos the next page. But we're going to see that this is an issue. Everything works this way, but yet in many cases we have the luxury to not engage in this and still like be alive and still eat, right? Most of us think, oh, we're blessed to be in a wealthy situation comparatively to the olden days, right? And most of the world, and some of the world. So let's go a little bit more into this, right? We'll see that this is the nature of a person. The whole nature of a person. If he's saying it from a place, he's saying it from a religious perspective. The Maharal now is going to give you another religious perspective. How you see this? He's going to say not only this is true, but Maharal is going to say, listen, this is so true. This is so at the core of a person that you can see it in his name. Inyan Ha'adam, he says, Maharal of Prague, Maharal of Prague, Tiferet Yisrael, chapter 3. He says like this, Inyan Ha'adam ityaches biyoter al-adama. The concept of Adam is that he's connected to the concept of Adama, like we know. And so of course you're going to know, okay, man was created from the dust of the earth, therefore he's called on the earth. Maharal says, no. It's deeper than that. He says, because if you look at the way the earth works, he says, the Adama is a special creation, that it's something that is all about the concept of potential. Right? And it brings things into actualization. Plants, trees, and all sorts of other things. It is a concept of potential that's bringing forth into actualization. That's something that's very unique. This is the concept of a person. Because he, the human being, is a being that is in a state of potential and has the capacity to bring himself or herself into fruition, into fulfillment, into actualization. And by the way, that also means that there's also the possibility that the human being won't bring themselves into fruition, into actualization. That's a unique creation as he's about to describe. Let's see why. So he says, "Lefichach shemor u'ilo sheyem mishatef im ha'adama she'im miyuchedet l'seid min hakol habo." So therefore, the name Adam and Adama, Adam is a fitting name for the human being because the Adama is also the same concept, not just that he's created from the dust of the earth, but the concept of what the Adama is, the concept of going from potential to actualization. That's what the person is all about. And listen to, and it says l'chein shleimut adam nikra gam ken b'shem pri. Therefore, even in English we have this, that perfection of a person, the fulfillment of a person is also called the fruits, right? He should eat from the fruits of his labor, right? We also use that. So why is that? We see that there's a connection there. Right, and he's going to say, look how unique the other. You might just think like, oh, okay, isn't that how things are? Well, hold on a second. Let's look at other creations. Right? He says, let's take a look at beneath the human being, at the animal. Right? He says, hold on a second. He says, Adam, al shem adama na lo v'hu na lishmo. Fine. V'ha behema, the animal nikres b'shem behema al shem ba ma. The name animal. In Hebrew, behema breaks down to ba ma. In it, what is there? Right? Rhetorical question. Meaning to say what you see is what you get. That physical thing in front of you, it's physical responses, it's emotional responses. That's just what it does. It's on autopilot. Right? Point of that the human being though is no. The human being has a potential to bring forth and may or may not do that. Right? I'd like to also add a little Chidushay Eliyahu Yaakov right here. Is that's the animal that's quote unquote below the person. But if you look also above the person, you have something called an angel. If you look at the name for an angel, a malach, you see also malach breaks down to malay kaf, the letter kaf, but also you can spell it out. What's a kaf? A kaf in Hebrew is a. This guy's getting gematria. No gematria right now, but a good one. You can try that one. We can figure that out too. I was going to do a different one. Malay kaf. Kaf is also a word. A letter kaf is a word. Kaf is a palm of a hand, right? A spoon is it's a cup. A spoon is called a kaf because it's a palm. It's like a palm. So malay kaf, the angel, it's like its hand, its palms are already full, meaning the angel is always actualizing its potential. It's in a world of clarity. It's always going to do the right thing on autopilot, right? The animal is doesn't have that higher level of potential is always just going to go according to its nature. Matter of fact, so much so is this the case that we have some angels are referred to as chayot hakodesh. Animals, just the holy version of animals, right? On autopilot. But they're on the autopilot with spiritual. The animals on the autopilot spiritual of the physical. We human beings stand in the middle. We human beings stand in the middle, like the ground, which it has a potential for more, but you have to bring it out. You have to bring out that potential. And that is involved to the extent that you're going to do your own personal plowing, your own personal seeding, your own personal water, your own personal light to hopefully bring out the fruit of self-actualization of who and what you can be. Right? And the truth is, and so this is the idea that, so a person is very much, we know that Torah already says the person's like a tree, right? Adam Ha'etz famous Tu B'Shvat Torah, right? So a person is very much like a seed. Say it again?
Isn't it in the first Gam that like it refers?
Oh, it's just still polygon. Yeah, okay. I never thought about that as comparing the person, but yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah. What's it called? So if you imagine a person's like a seed, right? A seed includes the entire story of the tree in it already, but in a state of potential. And the quote unquote yearning of any seed is to grow into the fullest fruition of what already is inside, right? And so this is the idea that what we need as people, and really all our joy is wrapped up in this, right? That essentially that our joy, like joy is going to be the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are, right? However, that means then that let's look at the flip side for a second. If joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are, then depression is the experience of not actualizing the reality of who you are. Now, let's just be clear. And if I'm saying in the context of this conversation, when I say depression, I'm not talking about some clinical diagnosis. I'm not talking about extreme medical case. I'm talking about the epidemic of feelings of depression that the masses are experiencing and struggling with. That most of us, if not all of us here, have some kind of struggle with this in some level, right? That's what I'm talking about. So just to be clear, that's the disclaimer, okay? So that means that if joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are, then depression is going to be the experience of not actualizing the reality of who you are. That means to say you don't know which way to go. Maybe you know exactly where to go, and for some reason you keep finding yourself running in the other direction, right? And this is something that we're dealing with so much more right now, because thank God we are blessed that back in the day to go ahead and do laundry, you had to take a whole day, take all their stuff, go down to the river, dip it all in, do whatever you do there, or bring it all out. I don't even know what they did, right? But it was a whole journey, it was a whole thing. Now, you take it, you put it in a machine, you push a button, an hour later, a half hour later, it buzzes, you take it out, you stick it in the other machine, push a button again.
Yeah.
And then you have the nerve to complain about with that, or whatever you have to do now, right? That's what it is. No matter what, people are going to complain. So my question is like this: the laundry process. Assuming you have a laundry machine in your house, let's say you do. Let's say you do. And by the way, even if you don't, but said it. Let's say you do. You just saved like a good 6-8 hours with this laundry machine. Okay, what are you doing with those 6 to 8 hours? Right. I don't know. What are you doing? What are you doing? So if you are going ahead and saying, okay, I'm a holy soul of the Lord, and I'm going to go ahead and clarify who am I, what am I here for, what's the bigger picture, what's my place in it, and I'm going to go ahead and figure that out and go ahead and start to make real steps in order to go ahead and live that stuff out. So if everything else is healthy, yes, depressed you're not going to be, because you're living out the inner potential and essence of who you are into expression and into actualization. However, most people are not doing that, right? Most people are not doing that, or most people are doing that to some extent, but then get distracted with other things. And that's when we start to feel a certain sense of loss of self, right? Think about it. How many moments in time must you kill before you start to feel a little bit dead inside, right? The bigger the soul, the quicker they're going to start to feel a certain loss of self. Where people start to walk around feeling like, I don't know, hold on a second, let me feel this here. I don't know, the pulse, it says I'm alive. Why do I feel so not? Why do I feel like so empty? Why do I feel like a shell of myself, right? So the thing is, though, I mean, think about it in terms of, people like, I mean, just look at what people do, right? What is our gut response? What are the, as a masses, as a society, what is the gut response of people? You know, imagine they get 20 minutes of free time. Okay, so gut response, what do people do? What's your go-to? There you go, got the phone, right? So they plop in the couch and they start scrolling through the phone, right? Okay. Think about it. Let me ask you a question though. When are you even more comfortable than when you're there plopped in your couch?
Sleeping.
When you're asleep in bed, there you go. Now, when are you even more at peace than when you're asleep?
You're dead.
When you're dead. Look at that.
Oh, God.
You said it, not me. So here's my question.
Real comfortable.
Exactly. So here's my question. Recognize what the society has done is it drilled into the back of our minds that the path to happiness and joy is to get in touch with the thing that touches the thing that touches death. Comfort, sleep, death. You said it, not me. And by the way, even the Gemara, even the Talmud already said that sleep is 1/60th of death. Forget about the, what does that mean? It means there's a flavor of death in sleep. We can feel that, right? All I'm adding is that comfort is 1/60th of sleep. That there's a flavor of sleep and comfort. Can we feel that? I think we can. But what does that mean? That means that comfort is 1/360th of death. So imagine your go-to, anytime you get 20 minutes of free time, is to go to the phone, right? And
360 of those and
that, exactly. And here in a world where we don't need to, in many ways, don't need to work in the way they needed to back in the day. So I mean, how many days do we spend doing that? You count up all the hours, right? How many months? How many, right? Like, let's just tally up all of high school, right? Let's tally up all of, right? I mean, before you know it, we've checked out of life for a decade, you know? And so life, this world, and especially if you want to get Kabbalistic, this world is called the Olam Asiyah, world of action, world of actualization, if you really translate the word correctly, Asiyah, correctly, actualization. And so that means that's what life's about. It's about doing, it's about having energy and potential, inspiration, and you go ahead and you follow that up with action and right and live that out. When we're not doing that, so what is that? Non-life, right? Non-this world. And so if we're doing the same thing as a dead person is doing in terms of actualizing potential, slowly but surely we start to chip away at the fabric of ourselves and our emotions and our feelings, and we start to feel a certain loss of self, mini loss of self, right? So it feels good in a moment, but in the end, because there's something coming in from the outside, there's external stimuli, right? So I give a quick upper, but like in terms of me extending forward, in terms of me going ahead and giving of self outward, that's not happening, right? And so when we do this over and over and over and over again, so all of these mini suicides, right? Because what is that? Right? What is a loss of life? It means, let's say if a life was quote unquote cut short, how do we measure that? What was the real potential? I don't know. But let's just say, right? What's mourned is, partially what's mourned is all that time, all that missed time. But here we are killing time, a mini suicide. I'm gonna suicide the next 20 minutes, right? Okay, so there's a certain loss right there. Now, is it the same thing as what I thought was going to be 80 years or whatever it is? No. But okay, it's another 20 minutes, another 20 minutes, another hour, another 40 minutes, and that adds up, right? And we start to have we walk around with pulse saying I'm alive, inner feeling not alive, right? Because I'm doing the same thing as a not alive person does, which is lay there doing nothing, right? Now, disclaimer, yes, I know what you're gonna ask. Disclaimer, yes, you need to sleep. Yes, there's time for relaxation. Yes, all of that stuff, right? There's something called in Kabbalah, the nefesh, the lower aspects of the soul. You need to be checked into really where you're at. Yes, I need self-care. All that stuff's true. Okay, but there's a difference between, okay, what do I really need to be at my peak performance? And we're not talking about starving ourselves. We're not talking about taking on crazy fasts. We're not talking about like, okay, let me drill myself down to 5 hours of sleep a day. Okay, nice, I'll avoid there for those who want to do it. I'm not talking about that. Let's say we need 8 hours. Okay, so why are we taking 11, right? Or why am I addicted? Well, there's a sort of FOMOing into something else at night and like keeping myself up and whatever. That's a separate conversation why we do that, right? Just search for meaning, whatever. But there's this lower. We need to recognize, okay, what do I need to be at peak performance? And then we can recognize all this other stuff is not me peak performance. Now it's not me feeling a need. Now it's me indulging in something because I have a side of myself that wants to be pacified instead of putting myself together, getting up and doing something worthwhile, right? So we all have to feel out what that point is, right? So with the help of a mentor, perhaps, or maybe just on our own internally, what is that line really? And by the way, usually a good way to help you to get to be more, I don't know if the word is active, but just in a healthy place with this stuff, is whatever you think you need, usually it's the healthier thing to do to help you be active and pushing is to do just a little bit less than that. If you need 8 hours, do 7 hours and 45 minutes. You know what I mean? By the way, the same thing goes also with, it's a good practice also in eating. I think the dietitians, nutritionists say a similar thing, right? Don't eat till you're full. Eat till you're good, and you can have a little more to be full, but like hold off in there, right? It keeps you alive. It keeps you active, right? Or those people say in terms of showers, have cold showers or whatever. Also, it activates the soul. Not to mention the fact that it activates the immune system, but like to do that at least for a few minutes a day. All of these things, when we are stretching ourselves, getting out of the comfort zone a little bit, means that we're moving. Means we're activating the soul, because the soul means that we're going ahead and getting outside of our comfort zone, getting outside of what necessarily feels good. So we're not talking about starving ourselves with these things. We're talking about being reasonable and at least a little bit, putting a little bit of effort, a little active, right? So they're fine. So there you go. So so the point is going to be, of course, that this is really what Torah is all about, right? Torah, the concept of Torah is about saying, okay, so what is worthwhile? You see, the problem that people have is that, thank God we are blessed with such wealth, or just a way of life that is wealthy, you call it, whether you have money or not, right? That it's just like people, the question that's plaguing people is, okay, so what is worth my time? What is worth my effort, right? People like, if I have $1 million, or now it's probably more, if I have $1 billion, that's the thing to dream to. $1 million is attainable, right? If I have $1 billion, right? So basically what they're saying is like, okay, I don't need anything. I don't need to do anything. It's all here. It's all prepared. Okay, so now what? So then what should I do? What is worth my time and effort? And that's the thing that's plaguing people. And this is the idea of what Torah is all about, right? Torah is teaching, okay, so how do we, right? Torah, again, from the Hebrew word mora, or teacher, teachings for life. What's life all about? Building relationship with the infinite, bring God into this world. So Torah is teaching the pathway by which to do this. Right? This is the concept of what Torah is all about. And this is what we're looking to do, is to bring this world to a state of actualization, bring ourselves to a state of actualization on all levels, right? All right, l'chaim, baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekol neh b'dvaro. So let's take a little look at Revelation. How are we doing so far, by the way? Questions, thoughts, ideas, anybody? All right. So we're going to take a look at Thomas Yesharim.
How would you find a mentor?
Say again?
How would you find a mentor?
All right, I'll
How
tell you a
would
couple.
find the best mentor for yourself?
Okay, so I think like this. So firstly, just repeat it to the Zoom. I don't know if the Zoom heard it, but the question was, okay, in terms of the mentor side of things, how do we go ahead and find a mentor? So there's a good thing in Pirkei Avot, which says, Asay lecha rav. Make for yourself a rabbi, make for yourself a teacher, make for yourself a mentor, whatever, right? There's two things there. There's rav, and there's also lecha, in your case, lach, right? Rav means a rabbi. It means like they do know something, but it's also lecha, they know you, right? That you feel like this person can relate to you, that they can contain you, that they can understand you, that they can relate to where you're coming from and who you are and your background and what you need and your realities of where you're coming from. Like we just mentioned before, there's an aspect of the neshama, which is I'm going to a higher place, right? And there's something I have higher aspirations, but then there's also an aspect of nefesh, that I'm alive, but there's also, what do I really need in my life to be in a place that I'm not being depleted, right? So you have to have someone who gets you, right? You have to have someone you feel that you get, that they get you, that you get, that they're able to understand you and your situation, your life, and your culture, whatever. All these things that like you feel that they can contain, you, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I think that's what you want to be looking for, and you know, for different people, it's going to be different things. How do you find them? I don't know. Go to getmemyrabbi.com or something. I don't know. Get me mentorme.com. I don't know. In terms of more than that, but I'll tell you that's what you're looking for. That much I can tell you. That's what you want to, you know, be looking to find. I believe. Other questions, thoughts, ideas, and follow-ups on that? Yeah.
I could comment on I watch a lot of baking videos because I find it really interesting, even though I myself am very bad at baking, but I really love the process of baking, and I like videos where they bake very complicated things over periods of time. So like, especially during Corona, sourdough became the most popular thing to make because it takes like 3 days, 2 weeks plus to make, depending on like your starter, blah, blah, blah. And I was watching this video by someone baking it, and she was going through all the steps and the complicated process and the delicate aspect of it. And she was, at the end, she was like, when you make that one loaf of bread, it tastes 1,000 times better than any other fancy artisan loaf of bread that you bought for $50. Because I spent 3 days baking a loaf of bread. Or like, she made croissants, this random lady, and she was like, you don't like the amount of effort of putting it in the fridge, like all the things that she put into it, it was like similar to like, so to speak, a farmer sitting there for months, plowing a field, watering, like it creates such a like deep whatever. So every time I like bake something, even if it comes out terribly, I'm like, no, this is my child. Like this is my favorite thing in the world. It's like such a like connection. I feel like
I'm so glad you said that.
it.
I'm so glad you said that because mamish, it's like from Hashem that you said that because like we're about to go into
This
somewhere.
talk about sourdough?
This talks about sourdough. At least it's talked about it the way you talked about it. Let's just say that. You ready? Here we go. Watch this. You're not going to believe the source of Talmud that we're about to see. Okay? He says like this. Firstly, we're reading now in the Leshem, Hakdama Yesharim 6:6. He says like this. I'm going to bring it close to my face because it's very difficult to see, and I did a terrible job of photoing it. So here goes. He says, והנה מה שיסד המציא אז ברוך שמו שיעשה ביטול הרע על ידי האדם עצמו, הנה פשוטו כי מיחד שכל תיקון על העולמות כולם שתוקנו לעיר באור זיו שכינתו וקדושתו יתברך שמו מן העולם ועד העולם, שרק זה הוא תכלית כל התכליתות. הנה הוא תולוי רק בביטול הרע, לכן יסד המציא אז ברוך שמו שיעשה ביטולו על ידי האדם. So Hashem set up things that like, listen, the way the world needs to come to its fruition, into its actualization, into its ultimate rectification, into its tikkun, is only going to happen by way of like moving away from those things that disconnect us from God, the things that turn us away. In order to do that, so Hashem set it up that listen, he wanted that the human being should be the one who does that, right? That's what the human being is supposed to do in this world, is bring this world to its rectification. So the person is the one who has to turn away from negative stuff, right? That know that the person himself will be hasiba v'hagaram lekol tikunim kulam. That know that that it'll be the human being that will be the cause of all of these rectifications for all of the worlds, from this world all the way up. Asher la'atid ki yedei zeh yeheneh kol echad mishalah. Because through this, each person, through their own unique work that they did in their own life, in their own situation, they will get the enjoyment and the benefit, the hana'ah, from each one according to what they did, what they accomplished, what they overcome, what they pushed through. It's as if he prepared all of whatever the person's work was. It's if they prepared it for themselves for the future. And this is because, why does it work? Because the way the world works is because the main goodness and enjoyment that a person gets is when he or she benefits and gets pleasure from something that he or she did themselves. Dafka. Just like it says in Baba Metzia, I think it is. A person wants their own thing more than their own, like their little sourdough, more than 9 sourdoughs from somebody else, right? Much more from someone else. He wants the little one of his own thing. What does that say? The reason why it works this way is Is because of the secret that this world is, the underpinnings of this world is running on something called unity. Not unity as much as oneness. What do we mean by oneness? Right? Because an inner principle of this world is this secret, this foundational principle of achdut, of oneness. Right? That basically the end should match the beginning. What are we saying? We're saying that there's an inner point of essence of each person that we want to bring out into fruition, into actualization, right? That's all this whole world, what's what we want. We want alignment. We want, right? This is why so many people have such difficulty when they're, and actually the psychologists even call this trauma, when you have something that you want to bring out or express that for whatever reason you don't bring it out to express. It causes an inner wound to develop. And this is what the psychologists call this trauma. Now, usually the lay people call trauma, like a person got getting hit by a bus or something, is trauma, right? But psychologically, the idea of trauma is that that a person has something that they want, that a certain aspect of self-expression, that Magila, and that they should be able to bring it out. It's their choice, it's their self-determination, whatever. And they hold themselves back. They're forced to not do it, or they hold themselves back to do it. Some kind of fear, or whatever it is, fear of rejection, fear of not being the thing that people think they're going to be, or not matching up to some picture, whatever it is. But so there's an inner disharmony that's being formed there, right? Not disharmony just like you don't like what someone else is doing, no, but yourself. Like I have an inner voice that's calling me to something, and then for whatever reason I'm intimidated or have a fear or whatever, like I don't go ahead and live that out, right? By the way, in relationships, this is also how a guy oftentimes becomes what can over time can become a shell of himself in the relationship, right? Because if a gal is like, if the person he's woman, you ever hear like the guys talk like, well, if I do this and this, I'm going to have hell to pay at home because she's like, what does that mean to say? It means like she's like through yelling and through other manipulations and whatever, she's getting him to not live in alignment with who he is. Now, so the person's married, whatever, has responsibilities to a certain extent. But also they also have an aspect of like they have a life to live also on their own, right? And any woman needs to know how to be able to like give the guy that kind of space. If not only is he going to be miserable and he's going to check out, but also you're going to end up not respecting him as well. So this is already, one of the main downfalls of the ladies of our generation is inappropriate unhealthy assertions of control. But this is a conversation for another time. But here what he's saying is the Indian of Achdut is oneness. But I think what he's saying essentially is what we're talking about here, this aspect of alignment, right? Like if a certain path, a certain vision, go ahead and now live that out. The seed, right, starts out in one way, it's at the beginning, but then the end point is to get to that place where it grew out into a tree, right? So like to go ahead and to have that oneness, have that alignment, right? Right? Like we say also in what is it? Lachadodi, right? Sof maseb machshavat tchila, right? That the end in action was the first in thought, right? Or like Stephen Covey, one of the great, you guys know who Stephen Covey is? I'm getting old. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Have you heard of that book?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so other that one, right? So his principle, I think it is number 2, is I am getting old. I don't remember it. Principle number 2 is end with the beginning in mind, begin with the end in mind. That's it. Begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind, right? Something like that. So anyway, so he says, right? That there's just like with the world also, there's a foundational stone, there's an idea that there's a foundational stone, then it gets out expressed into world, right? Therefore, the way a person works is that they should go ahead and get much more enjoyment out of their own expression of self than being gifted 9 others by somebody else. There's no oneness more than from oneself to oneself. It doesn't mean being selfish, right? It means like it's an expression of self, right? Therefore, Hashem set it up that a person should be the reason why the world gets to its place of fruition and actualization. Because that is how the person is created with a certain sod hachdut. The world is created with a certain sod hachdut, an aspect of oneness of self, right? So we're looking for alignment. And then each person will enjoy and get benefit from aspect of perfection of this world and expression and actualization of this world that they themselves brought forth. Right? Beautiful piece, right? Beautiful piece. Leshem. Mom's amazing. All right. So this is all the idea, and this is of course what we're trying to do with the Torah, right? The concept of the Torah is to live out our spiritual selves, live out our soul selves, live here what we're here for, to rectify, to elevate what this world is here for, to bring forth the vehicle, be a vehicle for expression of God into this world, as we've been discussing in previous classes, which is what we're here to do as souls, right? All right, let's add to it a little bit. Here we go. We're going to add to it a little bit. Here we go. We're going to see a source called the Tal Oros. The Tal Oros is one of the great introductions to Kabbalistic wisdom. Out there, in my personal opinion. Okay, Rabbi Yaakov Meir Spielman, Tal Oros 1 at 9.3. He says like this: the Ikar. Here we go.
Yeah.
You're good. Second page. The Ikar Tanug Va'idun she'en lamala mimenu hu hasagat yichido yidbarach shemo. The main enjoyment, pleasure, that is the number one to get in this world, who hasagat yichido yidbarach shemo, is to comprehend the oneness of Hashem. V'zehu ha'idun shel olam haba. This is the pleasure and enjoyment of olam haba. U'v'masigim ha'yichud megula k'ra'oi b'li shum miniyah. When a person actually does this, az yutanug shalei mikol tzad, then a person has a holistic enjoyment because it's all inclusive. It includes everything in this world. She'ein tanug l'mala mimeno v'hu ba'achar hanitzachon et hamunim hayichud. And when does this come about? This comes about when a person is able to push through anything that seems to be denying the reality that it's all Hashem, right? Denying the reality of the oneness of Hashem, right? And how we do this? Ayadei Torah u'mitzvotah, that we get involved in this world of multiplicity, but we get involved in seeing the Hashemness in this world of multiplicity through Torah and mitzvot. Shehema emtzeim l'shaber le'achnias hasitracha ve'lehagbir hakdush ayadei hachazarat hara letov. And so by way of this, we go ahead and we get involved in the world of Ra. What does the world of Ra mean here? World of non-God clarity. But we go ahead and bring forth God clarity, even in that place of world of God, non-God clarity. And then it becomes to be revealed that really all the non-clarity wasn't really this thing you're working against and it's good versus evil and there's this fight going on. No, really, that was just supposed to be the greatest stage for the ultimate expression of godliness and clarity, which could never have been expressed in this way if there wasn't a seeming lack of God clarity. Does that make sense? We spoke about this once before. So, and so each person has to do this in their own life, in their own way, right? Have that alignment in their own way, bring forth the Hashemness that's at the root of your life and in the root of this world. And then we have our struggles, we have our doubts, we have our non-clarities, we have our whatever, to go ahead and to push through in our own unique way. This itself is the schar. We get the reward that we got. That person should each be connected to the root of who and what they are by way of living out their soul side, even here in this world. And then there's no blockages as to who they really are and what they really are. Okay, next source. We have a similar idea here. Well, actually, here the Maharal takes the next level. Now he talks about this other side. The other side, everything we've been talking about so far is talking about joy, bringing forth everything, right? Maharal is going to show you, okay, well, what's the other side? What happens when we don't bring it forth? He's going to say, a person who withholds himself from Divrei Torah, a person who doesn't do Divrei Torah, no fel begehenim, that person falls in Gehenim. Right? Usually we translate this as hell, but we're going to understand what he's going to say what the concept of what Gehenim is all about. So he's going to say, what's the difference between Torah versus Gehenim? Torah is the concept of it brings forth. It's the mitziyut of everything. It's realness, right? Like we always like to say that the Torah is like the blueprint of all creation, right? So that's what he's saying. He's saying it brings forth the energy for creation. The world is created here. The world is created for the Torah, for the expression of Torah. Kasher mirapet Torah is when a person withholds from that. So what is he going to? He's going to vacancy. He's going to, instead of being involved in existence and realness, he's involved in non-existence and falsehood or illusion, right? So imkain who paresh atzmo min ikar mitzius, he's separating himself from the existence. Lakach ein ru'ui lo rak gehenim shu hefech says. So then, why is Gehenim fitting? Because you have to understand what he means by Gehenim. Gehenim, he says, is Gehenim tziv etzamos ve'enu bechal mitziut rak ivadonu. It's the concept essentially of non-existence, right? Which is a wild thing because we're calling it a place as if it exists, but we're saying it's non-existence. What's a good way to understand this? How does this make sense? Let's bring it back to our concept of what we were saying before of what depression means, right? Feelings of depression. Okay, feelings of depression. What does that mean? What is feelings of depression? We just said joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are. Feelings of depression is the experience of not actualizing reality of who you are. So hold on a second. I'm not actualized. There's nothing there to feel, but yet you're there, right? So you're there, existing, experiencing non-existence, even though you're existing. That's what you're saying. This is the concept of Gehenim according to Maharal. It's the experience of non-existence, right? Interesting. Okay, anyway, Maharal of Prague, next source. This is what's all in Torah. So he says,
in a sense, like emptiness. Like
yes. The experience, yes.
And actually, like wants to be filled with something.
Yes.
But it's not.
Yes.
And
It's not, and it could be, and it's not. Right. Exactly. Maharal, Rabbi Yehuda Loe, Maharal of Prague, Nisibas Olam, Nisiv, Netivat Torah. 7 says like this: Habracha yesh levarech b'peh v'gam b'lev. V'ruiz le'shelegodel atov v'shenatan Hashem yisborach et haTorah. V'ken ruiz shedia habracha b'chol levavam k'fi rov haTova shenatan lehem haTorah. Right. So he's saying, when we bless the Torah, we should be focusing on what we're blessing over here. Right. We should be focusing on the fact that we are getting what it's all about. Not only that, we're recognizing the giver of the Torah. We're involved, right? And that's an important thing also when we're talking about the blessings of the Torah. That's an important thing to point out as well, right? A lot of times people can be involved with Torah and you get into the details of the Torah, but you forget that the bigger picture, like there's a God who gave the Torah and I'm connecting to, right? It's easy to forget that, right? There are those who say that this is why every Gemara, every Talmud starts on page 2, right? Crack open any of those guys. You'll see it all starts on page Bet, right?
Oh, really?
So what's the Aleph? The Aleph, they like to say, is okay. The Aleph is the motivation to open the Gemara in the first place, right? The Aleph is the Torah. The Aleph is God, right? So, so this is the idea. So just like the Torah is what it's all about, so you should be totally invested in the bracha of the Torah, right? Because the blessing should be with the passion of the goodness that you're blessing about. Remember what we said. A blessing is all about. It's about bringing forth Hashem in that thing, right? That was last week. Ki abracha shemarecha adam al mitzvahs, not saying bracha al chesed v'tov shasad natan lo mitzvahs. It's fine. B'shvil, what does it say? B'shvil zeh, hu ohev Hashem yisbarach b'chol libo, sharei af ki mitzvahs him all al adam v'im kol zeh mekayem ha mitzvah u'merecha Hashem yisbarach. So he's talking about the idea that there's also resistance to it, but the point is when you take it and you go ahead and you bless Hashem, you see Hashem in the thing and you bring forth Hashem in the thing. So that's the bigger you do that, the bigger the blessing, the bigger the goodness. So anyways, this is the idea a little bit of the concept of blessing and blessing the Torah, what the Torah is all about. About what we're doing here essentially, right? Is the concept of actualization. We all have unique souls that are brought here, particular to be building a relationship with Hashem and bringing forth Hashem in this world in a unique way that's unique to each of our souls with all the challenges that come along with that. And so we should be blessed. We should be blessed to be able to achieve this stuff and to be focused on it. And yes, to be doing everything in a healthy way and find out what we need and figure out what we need in a healthy way and figure that out. And by the way, sometimes you try something and you see, it's not working. Right? It's okay, this isn't enough sleep, or this isn't, okay, so you figure it out. It's part of the process, right? You fall, you get up, and you figure it out. And so we should be blessed to be able to be involved in this, to be able to be living conscious. That's the main thing, living conscious and work on these things and being conscious of these things. And Chaim l'chaim. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
Is this on Birchas HaTorah, or is this on like this idea necessarily on like the brachos of the Torah, like in Shul, like when they're saying like
Beer.
is it both or like just in the general?
No,
sense?
this Birkas HaTorah. Last week we spoke about the brachas in general. Here we're talking about specifically brachas, the brachas that we say on the Torah. That's what we were discussing. Cool. We're gonna call it recording, and then we can have other convos. I don't know. Here goes.
I have a question that might not be in the. I mean, it's. Less of a like why do we I'm pretty sure before about it and I zoned out the whole time, so I remember hearing the cheer and then I remember not remembering anything of why we have
Hold on,
the
let me
first
cut out the
bracha on
Zoom
Torah
and
and then
reach
number
out later.
two.